buenas tardes. Welcome to this session dedicated to women's economic empowerment, the place of women in the economy. My name is Arantxa González and I head the International Trade Center, an organization of the United Nations helping small businesses participate in international trade. And when we mean small businesses, we also mean women in business, women in trade. Why do we want to focus on women's economic empowerment? I think the case was made very clearly this morning by Christine Lagarde, by Amina Mohamed, but just so that we are clear. Why? Because it's good for our economies. When women participate in the economy, the growth is stronger and the growth is more inclusive. If we were to eliminate all discriminations to women's participation in the economy, it's like adding a new US and China economy to the world economy. That's what we are talking about. It's also good for business in that we know that businesses that are more diverse are more competitive, they are more productive, they pay better wages. But more importantly, women's participation in the economy is good for societies too. The spending pattern of a woman is different from the spending pattern of a man. You've heard these figures before. 80% of what a woman earns goes back to her family, to her community, compared to 40% in the case of men, and thus means a faster route to end poverty. And we are here because we want to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals of eradicating extreme poverty by 2030. And women's economic empowerment is an integral part of doing precisely that. So that's the why. But we are not going to discuss the why. We are here to discuss the how. How are we going to ensure that the laws, the practices, the access to credit, the networks, and more importantly, the social norms and traditions are changed to ensure more women participate in the economy? And in order to do that, we have an amazing panel. Let me start by introducing you the panel. We have first the EU Development Commissioner, Neven Mimica. I guess, Commissioner, here, you don't need to be introduced since this is your home. I'm going to go to the other side. UN Women Deputy Executive Director, Janik Glemarek. Next to the Commissioner, the World Food Programme, East and Central Africa, Valerie Guarnieri. Next to Yannick, Parvinder Bir. She is the CEO of the Tony Elemulus Foundation. Next to me, to my right, CARE International, Country Director for Benin and Togo, Claudine Mensa. And then, last but not least, our amazing young leader from Botswana, Chawa. So this is what we are going to be doing today. We are going to hear from the members of the panel. I'm going to be interrogating them, but we want to hear from you. You, I'm sure, have already downloaded the app. Remember, the EDD app. And you have to click Shape the Debate, and you have to select Q&A A1 and post your questions, because this is going to be a dialogue not between us, but with you, with the members of this panel. Let me first invite Commissioner Mimica. You are our host, and we know that the issue of women's economic empowerment is close to your heart. So, Commissioner, what is it that needs to be done? How are we going to get there?
Sure. Thank you very much, Arantxa. Very good afternoon to everyone, dear friends, dear colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. There is no doubt that women's rights are human rights. And in the same way, there is no doubt that an investment in women is an investment in humankind. Because investing in women means investing in our families, our communities, and in a more sustainable future for all of us. We know that women reinvest up to 90% of their earnings into their families, compared to just 30 or 40 at best % for men even when basic needs are unmet. Women are more likely to spend on food, healthcare, and their children's education, which directly benefits everyone. For every extra year a girl stays in secondary school, her future income can increase by 15 to 25%, and her prospects of early marriage and adolescent pregnancy reduce. But when women and girls are denied access to education or employment, the health and wealth of their families suffer as well. We also know that women are more likely to do the majority of household work and care for elderly and young children, and often as a direct result to be out of work or in temporary part-time and lower paid positions. So, until we achieve gender equality in the home, we will never reach it in the workplace. The private sector, alongside the public sector, can play a huge role in this respect. On the one hand, by incentivizing men to take a greater share of domestic responsibilities, and on the other, by ensuring that women's careers are not adversely affected. Women in Europe currently make up 60% of all graduates, but less than a quarter of company boards and only 5% of leaders. With a globally aging workforce and an urgent need for skilled workers, this is simply a waste of talent, investment, and opportunity. We know that companies with more women in senior positions are more effective and more profitable. A recent study of over 20,000 companies in 91 countries showed 6% higher net profits for those with at least 30% of female leaders. And you are all familiar with McKinsey's calculation that achieving gender equality in the workplace could add between 12 and even $28 trillion to the global economy. In the best case, that's about the size of the world's two largest economies combined, the US and China. So the business case for investing in women is pretty clear. But the question is, what can we do about it? In the European Union, we have a comprehensive framework to ensure women's protection, participation, and empowerment throughout all of our external actions. Our aim is to mainstream gender equality across 85% of new initiatives by 2020. And in addition, to increase funding targeted specifically at women's empowerment. Last year, that meant around 9 billion euros for mainstreaming and over 400 million for more targeted actions. But we need to do even more to tackle the biggest obstacles to gender equality. One of them is most certainly violence against women and girls, a persistent plague of extraordinary proportions that crosses all borders, generations, and communities at home, at work, and in public. The costs are enormous. UN research estimates up to 2% of global gross domestic product. That's equivalent to 1.5 trillion euros, or roughly the size of the Canadian economy. So our answer must be clear. We need to stop this once and for all. That's why I'm excited to be working together with the UN as our key partner to develop a global gender initiative which will focus on eliminating all forms of violence against women and girls. We all have a responsibility, men and women, colleagues and community leaders, politicians and activists, to invest in gender equality and women's empowerment. As the world's largest employer, the private sector must also play its part in leading by example and changing cultures both within organizations and in local communities. This could mean, for example, better family leave for men and women with care responsibilities, more gender-sensitive recruitment, promotion and development, or offering scholarship and vocational training to improve women's employability. I'm sure we will hear much more inspirations from the participants in this room, because this is what today's event is all about. There is a saying that if you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your own path. So imagine what we could achieve by working together, public and private sector, men and women, young and old. Let's listen, learn, and light the way to greater investment, empowerment, and equality for all. Thank you very much.
So, Commissioner, let me just ask you a question. Success obviously depends on partners sharing motivations, partners sharing vision. What mechanisms will the European Commission use in order to ensure that partners deliver on their commitments towards women's economic empowerment, to ensure that there are results at the end of the day?
Yes, actually partnership is at the core of the overall sustainable development goals. Partnership is at the core of the gender equality actions, at the empowerment of women. And this is what the Commission really would like to pursue in the implementation of our gender action plan. We do have gender action plan. We really would like to look, and we already did it. We did a mapping of all of our projects in order to, I would like to say, to chercher la femme, to find to what extent each and every project contributes or is relevant to women's equality and women's empowerment, or fighting the violence against women. But to turn the results of this mapping, and we would like, as I said, to have at the first stage at least 85% of all our projects be gender relevant, in order to have it in the real implementation on the ground. We need to partner with at least with two important players, important stakeholders. One is partnering with the UN system. Therefore, our new global gender initiative, our new specialized funding, trust fund, whatever form we shall find for it, in order to fight the violence against women across the board by partnering with the UN agencies, and other stakeholders that would be important for this partnership. It's about violence against women, but this is a broader concept that also entails the other aspects of better education, family planning as well, sexual and reproductive health and rights, and other issues that will be part of our joint common partners action. And the other partnership we would like to forge together is with the private sector, along the lines I tried to explain, having private sector on board of our development partnership, but also on board of our gender action. So therefore, for us in the European Union, I would really like to see the main message today could be the working in partnership is key, and we in Commission will be striving to achieve this with public and private sector, with European Union member states, with international organizations, especially UN and UN Women, with civil society organizations, and all women around the world. This is the partnership we need.
Thank you very much. Very clear. So public and private with clear monitoring and tracking of results. Yannick, many UN SDGs have indicators, have objectives related to gender, and then we've got goal 5, that is the mother of all goals, which is, if I may, which is specifically devoted to gender equality and to empowering women and girls. What role for the private sector in this space?
The, it's follow very much a question on partnership. There are different estimates in terms of what kind of financial flow we will need to achieve the SDGs by 2030. I've seen estimates ranging from $2.5 trillion to $6 trillion. And the total official development assistance is around 130, $140 million. And thus, we will have to basically mobilize 50 times more money in order to achieve the SDGs on time. And this kind of money can only come from two different sources. One will be fiscal expansion, and the other one will be aligning private investment with sustainable development. And we know today that a lot of priority investment for sustainable development are actually profitable if you have the right policy environment. And therefore, they hold the promise of being able to deliver a triple development dividends, an economic, but also a social and an environmental. And so, for me, the 2030 agenda will be essentially a public-private partnership. And the role of the private sector will be to put in place the policy environment that will increase the risk-reward profile of green and inclusive investment. And to capacitate all the actors of the society to basically contribute to this efforts. So essentially, the private sector will be a key partner, and partnership will be key to achieve the 2030 agenda. And this applies as much to goal 5 as to all the other goals. And and for us, if I can take again 10 seconds to come back to goal 5 per se, for us, women empowerment and gender equality is both a fundamental right and a solution to almost every single sustainable development challenge. We will not implement the 2030 agenda if we do not accelerate effort towards gender equality and women empowerment. And so by leveraging the gender equality as a solution, we can accelerate the effort of all the other goals, and at the same time, by progressing on all the other goals, we can accelerate efforts toward Sustainable Development Goal 5.
Thank you so much. Let me turn to Valerie now. Valerie, how is the World Food Programme ensuring early investments into women's empowerment with respect to food and nutrition security, two very fundamental ingredients?
Well, thank you very much for that question. And really, as the World Food Programme, we're focusing on Sustainable Development Goal 2, which is ending hunger, but with very much the lens that was just highlighted, that progress in gender equality, gender empowerment is absolutely essential for ending hunger, while ending hunger will contribute also to improving the progress on gender equality. So when I take this from the World Food Programme approach, investments early is absolutely fundamental, and that really requires a life cycle approach. So we're responsible for providing food assistance. That assistance is absolutely critical at the early stages of a child's life in nutrition. And so an investment in child nutrition is an investment in the future of that child. It's an investment in the future of that nation's economy, and it's an investment in the future well-being of the individual and of the family. And this fundamentally requires a focus on the nutrition of women and the nutrition of girls at childbearing age, so that they enter into pregnancy in a manner that will best bring that child to full nutrition while maintaining their own nutritional status. And in our early child nutrition support, it's very much a focus on the child and on women and girls. The next stage is really looking at schools, and the commissioner highlighted that critical importance of keeping girls in school. We know that keeping girls in school even one additional year delays marriage, helps with birth spacing, and results in better nutrition practices in the household. And we've heard how keeping girls in school can increase the income of the woman 15 to 20% over time. So as WFP, our role in partnership is to support school meals programs. And we know that school meals programs that target all the children in the classroom who are vulnerable, but with a specific emphasis on girls, has been shown to increase enrollment in schools by 28% girls enrollment and around 24% boys enrollment. And if you add a take-home ration, so something, a high-value commodity or cash, to that school meals that helps address household food insecurity, you can increase the girls' enrollment to 30% or higher. So this investment really in school-age children and keeping girls in school as long as possible contributes to their long-term well-being, but also to their economic empowerment. The third way, which an organization like WFP supports investments early and through the life cycle, is really by introducing an approach of empowering women and equity in all of the programs that we do. That can be about women's leadership in asset creation programs that are being established in order to ensure that assets are created that help build community resilience against droughts and other crises at their level. It also involves ensuring that food, when provided, whether it's food in kind or food through cash assistance, so that a family can purchase their food through the market in a time and stress, that assistance is provided directly to women. And we find that by providing support directly through women, we can ensure that that resource, whether it's cash or whether it's food, is best used to meet the needs of the family. So these are some of the ways in which we support both an early investment in women's empowerment, but also continue that through the life cycle.
Thank you very much, Valerie, for that, which was in the form of very concrete suggestions. Let me now turn to Claudine. You work a lot with the bottom of the pyramid. What are the factors that we need to take into account when working to empower women at the bottom of the pyramid, but in a transformational manner? I mean, you in particular have large experience given your work in Africa, but in particular in Togo and Benin. What are these factors that we need to take into account?
Thank you for your question. The work of CARE International focuses worldwide on gender equality and women empowerment. And as most of you know, by 2020, we'll have more than 1 billion women entering the workforce. And this will be done through entrepreneurial work. But what we observe in our countries is that the system doesn't work for women. For instance, there are issues of access to financial information, financial literacy, and also financial products that are adapted to women and tailored to their specific condition. We've talked here about the level of education of women. So our work at CARE International consists into addressing such barriers, such blockage. We also know that financial inclusion is a key factor that prevents women to realize their full potential. So one of the issues that we address through our work is to see at community level what are the traditional barriers, what are the cultural factors that prevent women being part of the system that is out there and also get the fair share of her involvement in economic development. And then by doing that, we work as CARE to help women setting up groups, what we call voluntary saving and loan associations at local level, groups of 25 to 30% to save the limited income they have, but also work together as a solidarity group to enhance their capacities, learn how to initiate and manage income-generating activities, and also support each other in addressing traditional barriers that prevent them accessing to financial services, for example. This is at community level. On the other hand, we also work with decision makers. We build the capacities of these women groups, voluntary and civil and loan associations, to challenge the traditional norms that have been affecting them for centuries now. And also we work with decision-making makers to address policies that can constitute a barrier for women accessing their rights and enjoying their rights. So these are some key elements that I can mention. To finish, I will say that it is key that we also recognize the role women play on various value chains, being agriculture value chains, for example. But what we observe is that women, they have very limited benefits from these value chains, but also they play a very low role. So part of our work with our partners back home and also at all levels is to ensure that we work in partnership with the private sector, with decision makers, including donors, to ensure that the role of women is recognized, and also we enhance it so that she has the capacity to play a greater role. She has access to information, and she has access to financial resources to increase that role and also benefit fully from her investment in the work that she has been doing for centuries and which is not recognized.
Well, thank you for raising an issue that is very, as you can see, she trades very close to my heart, which is the position of women in the value chains and making sure that they don't end up being always at the low end of the stick, obviously with the low part of the benefits. We're going to get back to that. But let me now turn to Chawa. Chawa is an amazing young leader, and I know that you are extremely engaged in empowering women in the economy, but also in politics in Botswana. What lessons do you have for other leaders from your experience that would want to do precisely that?
The young leaders, yes. First of all, coming from a country that is largely a youthful country, the largest percentage of our country is youthful, and the larger percentage is women. Now, looking at the future leaders, what I will tell them, or what I usually tell them, is that two things: identify a problem and take bold steps. Now, you might ask, what is to identify a problem? To identify a problem, you need to start asking questions. Gone are the days when you are a youth and you see things happening in your country and you sit back. Ask questions. Look at your environment, look at your country, and ask questions. Why is my parliament doesn't have women? Why are policies affecting me as a youth, as a woman, being made by men? Not say we shouldn't have men in the parliament. We need to have an equal representation of women and men in parliament. Ask a question. Look at the stock exchange and look at the insurances and ask, why aren't women investing? Why aren't women buying shares and bonds? Look at the economy policies and initiatives that your country has and ask questions such as, why aren't we having gender mainstreaming in these policies and these initiatives? You know, earlier, Amina Mohammed said young people need to also be action takers. And that is my stand as well. You need to take action. You need to be bold, and you need to be players. That is what I mean by identifying a problem. I'll take example of my country in Botswana. We have what we call the National Development Plan 11, which was developed in 2016 December, and it will be what we are planning to develop from this year till next year, December. And as a youth of Botswana, and to address my youth and everybody here who is a youth and future leaders, to say, look at the plan, which is an amazing plan, by the way, aligned with 2030 agenda and SDGs. And even though it's a good initiative, ask next year, where is the empowerment of the women in SMEs that we were promised? What are the young people doing in politics? Where are the women in politics? Where are the women in parliament? It's about accountability. The youth need to identify a problem and start taking accountability into issues and take their leaders into accountable.
All right, you got a big applause, Chawa.
Um, yes, and one other thing I did say, identify a problem and take a bold step, take a bold action. These days, you don't have to wait for your policymakers or your politicians to make a decision for you. No, approach your bank, approach your local bank and ask them, how can I be of help? Actually, come with a solution. I used to have a boss who used to say, if you have a problem, don't come to me if you don't have a solution. And that is my advice to the youth, that don't bring a problem with no solution. Identify a problem and bring a solution. Approach the private sector, approach the banks and say, we have discovered that women who are trading in SMEs do not have bank accounts, do not have access to microfinancing because they're considered not credit worthy or risky. But this is a problem. This is our solution. Our solution is innovation. Our solution is agentless banking or uh, branchless banking. And taking action, it goes beyond just advocating. Advocating, yes, it's a good initiative, but you need to take a step further. If you see that the trade in your country, the market is saturated, women are trading amongst each other and it's not growing, approach the neighboring country and ask, how can the women in my country, in our SMEs, those who are weaving baskets in Botswana, how can they trade in a neighboring country? How can they trade in Brussels? So my advice is to identify a problem, take a bold step, and take action.
Wow, that was very clear. Commitment and action, action, action. Let me go now to another amazing woman, Parvinda. Parvinda is the CEO of Tony Elumelu's foundation. She's at the heart of a private sector that is working to empower women to participate in the economy. Parvinda, how does one do that? We are talking about the private sector all the time. You're doing it.
We are absolutely doing it. But let me just, because I don't come from your world, the development world, and all this amazing talking and knowledge sharing. I'm a storyteller. I spent 30 years of my life making films, feature films, documentaries. And let me share a story, my own story of what led to my own transformation. My father had 4 daughters and 1 son. And at a very early age, he decided that the one thing that he could give me was education and educate his 4 daughters and obviously his son. I come from a poor, working class, rural village in Punjab. That's where I was born. I never imagined that at the age of 61, I'd be sitting on a platform like that, because that was not what was in my, preordained. I would have been married at the age of 18, and I should now have had dozens of grandchildren. That it took one man to make a decision to transform my life, and I then have taken what he did for me to really make that my own sole purpose, my passion and purpose, which was to bring about change in whatever position that I've held in my life, and to really empower my daughters, 28 and 24, that what I can give you is wings and it's for you to fly. One of the biggest challenges in the 21st century for men is that you can have all the plans in the world, but the thing you have to ask yourself, the question is, am I ready to share power with women? And the moment you answer that question honestly, no matter what position you're in, the public sector or private sector, you will see a phenomenal transformation in the position of women. Because we as women, as mothers, as daughters, as wives, we know the power, the economic, the cultural, the social impact that we make day in, day out. So I say to men, yes, you can have your plan, but are you ready to share that power? So there is one man that is doing precisely that, and that's Tony Elumelu, a businessman, an investor, a philanthropist, who's made in Africa and is now reinvesting in Africa. He is a self-made millionaire, and he says that what he wants to be remembered for is the legacy that he leaves behind, and not just the size of his bank account. When I arrived in Lagos, having made the move from film to foundation, I was blown away by the number of women in senior positions at the UBA, the United Bank for Africa, which is in 19 countries, employing 20,000 people. I was blown away by the number of women CEOs at the Hares Holding group of investment companies. He didn't do it. He didn't wait for people to say to him, you should employ more women. It came naturally to him. He also happens to be a father of 5 daughters and 2 sons. So when I arrived, he threw me a challenge, which was, I want to invest $100 million of family wealth in empowering African entrepreneurs. And my job was to help him operationalize that vision, to create a long-term sustainable structure, a framework for a program that would encompass 54 African countries. It would be multilingual, French, Portuguese, and English. And it would be sector agnostic, so the program that we run. And most fundamentally, it will empower the 10,000 entrepreneurs that we would go on to provide training, mentoring, and seed capital for. So he wanted to take a holistic approach. It's no good giving one bit of that in the value chain and denying the other. So the how is this extraordinary, audacious, crazy program called the Tony Lumulu Entrepreneurship Program. In the first year, we received 20,000 applications. In the second year, we received 45,000 applications. In the third year, we received 93,000 applications. First year, we selected 26% women business owners for the program. We recognized that that was not good enough from 51 African countries. We looked at how we were going to change that. And in 2016, we used the role models of women from 2015, the 26%, and used them as a way of telling other women, you have a business idea, you too can apply and have the opportunity to be selected on the program. The selection process is rigorous. The application process is daunting. I designed the application form to really distinguish those who are entrepreneurs from grantpreneurs. We want to build women business owners and African business owners, amongst them being women. By 2017, the number of women who've been selected on our program are 39%. We didn't do anything special for them, but what we did do was to go and communicate with them. We made them aware of the opportunity. So what do women entrepreneurs need? They need exactly the same things that male entrepreneurs need. They need skills. They need to be able to take their idea from an idea to a business which is generating revenues for them, through which they're able to create jobs. A number of our women entrepreneurs, we now have 900 women entrepreneurs from the 3,000 entrepreneurs that we've selected in the last 3 years. So absolutely, training is absolutely fundamental. Women need to know how to run and manage a business. They also need mentoring, and mentoring is for life. It's not just while you're on the program. They also need access to information, and that is one of the fundamental gaps in women's own self-esteem and knowledge. Knowledge is power, and what we are doing is giving women knowledge, which is giving them power, which is giving them confidence. But they also need seed capital. You know, in the world where I grew up, i.e. in the UK, having left India when I was 10 years old, we are spoiled for choice in terms of the amount of support that we as women and other entrepreneurs get and to enable our businesses to be realized, yeah? You go to family, you have fools and you have friends who you can cajole to invest in your idea. That entrepreneurial ecosystem is evolving in the 54 African countries. So it is important that we invest, also provide those women entrepreneurs with that initial seed capital. One woman took that seed capital and is now running one of the biggest motor mechanics workshops in Lagos. Another one has taken the seed capital. It is now put into production prosthetics for a lot of women who've had breast cancer and are giving them back their body image. Other women are in fashion. Other women are in agriculture, in ICT, in healthcare, right across the different sectors. So the seed capital is fundamental. But what is even more fundamental is that those women have a peer-to-peer network. The elephant in the room is the isolated entrepreneur. And what we've done with these 900 women is to take away that isolation. You are no longer alone with your own problem as an entrepreneur. You've got 800 other women entrepreneurs, if that's what you want to seek, but you've got 3,000 other African startups and entrepreneurs that you can turn to for solutions. And that is a network to die for. We've also formed partnerships, really important value-add partnerships. ITC is an important, we cannot go on building platform after platform, but what we can do is to say, we have now built an investable pipeline of 3,000 trained entrepreneurs who've been trained, who've been mentored, and we provided seed capital. We've already invested $10 million of seed capital in 2,000 entrepreneurs. So a lot of those women have taken that and are now multiplying. They are creating jobs and they are generating wealth. But ITC platform was fundamentally important for us because it allows women who have the dream to export their businesses. The 5 criteria against which we select those women, first is the feasibility of your idea, the market opportunity, the scalability. Women want to scale their businesses, yeah? They can stay within their community, but they have the ambition to scale their businesses. Financial literacy, one of the weaknesses across the African entrepreneurial system, as we discovered, is financial literacy. And we have developed ways of teaching financial management to women as well as other entrepreneurs. And finally, you have to have that fire in your belly that you really want to be an entrepreneur. I can tell you, I've been an entrepreneur all my life in the media and entertainment sector. At the end of the day, you wake up and you're alone. And it's important to know and feel that fire in your belly. So I would ask, certainly, I would say to the development world, take a leaf out of the private sector, empower women to be job creators, to be wealth generators. And the way that you do that is by really providing them with the skills that they need, not in a patronizing way, but in a real systematic way. African women are the ones who are driving the African economies in the 54 African countries. If we don't tap into that, as Mr. Olumelu clearly is, he sees that. He sees this as a huge opportunity. He's doing that in his own workforce, and he's doing it through the Tony Olumelu Entrepreneurship Program. I think I'll leave it there and come back to more.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Parvinda and the power of role models, fundamental to inspire other women. We're going to get now to you. So I'm going to take 3 questions from the floor. I'll take them from the floor or I'll take them through the app. You're also free to put them through the app if you prefer. And I'm going to go first to Mr. Stéphane Dion. He's the Special Envoy of Canada's Prime Minister for the European Union. And let me, before I give you the floor, tell you what amazing thing Canada just did this week together with Chile. They signed the first trade agreement with a whole chapter devoted to women and trade. Big applause.
Muchas gracias.
Un placer.
Indeed, I am, ladies and gentlemen, the special envoy of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for the EU and Europe. In addition, he asked me to be the ambassador of Canada and Germany. So it will be a bit busy, but it's great to do that. I have 8 short points to make. The first one is, I think that this morning we have been the witnesses of a key moment for the development of the world, and it was the signature of the European Consensus for Development. The EU and its members states are, as you know, responsible for 60% of the international assistance in the world. So that's a key moment. I think we should say that. The second point is that Canada will be more than ever a strategic partner for the EU, because we sign, in addition of a free trade agreement, we sign a strategic partnership agreement. And in this partnership agreement, there is a dialogue that Canada and the EU must have on international assistance, and it will happen in the coming weeks. But third point is next Friday, on Friday, 2 days from now, the Minister of International Development of Canada, Marie-Claude Bibeau, will make public the new assistance policy, international assistance policy of Canada. So I cannot tell you too much details, but I want to say first that it has been the result of an extensive consultation process in Canada with developing countries and emerging countries, and with the EU, the European Union. I want to thank the European Union for all the advices they gave to us. What I'm in a situation to tell you, if you keep the secret, is that at the heart of this policy will be indeed gender equality, empowerment of women and girls. It will be the core of what we will do. It's not the only thing, but everything we'll do will be linked to that, whether it is education or promoting the rule of law and so on. The core of what we will do will be empowering women and girls. 6th point. So, some of you may know that Canada in the last years decided to focus on some countries. We called it the countries of focus. The view was we cannot be everywhere. If you are everywhere, you're nowhere. So we'll focus on some countries. Well, we will change that. We think it has been a mistake in some ways, because it's better for a country like Canada, with the resource we have, to focus on some priorities everywhere we may be helpful. And one of our policy will be to see in which way we may help countries to develop their own approaches together in a region, instead of in isolation, each of them without working with the others. After all, the Marshall Plan that worked well for Europe was one plan. It was not a plan for France, a plan for Germany, a plan for Belgium. It was one plan. And why this plan has been a success is partly because it was aimed to encourage European countries to learn to work together instead of being at war together. So Canada will try to develop the same approach in Africa, in South America, and so on. 7th point, we need to find a way to involve the private sector. Public money will never be enough. It has been said, and Canada fully agree. We'll create a new institute for that, the Development Financing Institute. It will be in my city, Montreal. And I think with the EU, part of our dialogue should be to see what are the best practices to be sure that the private sector will offer its contribution. The 8th and last point, according to me, my own view, the challenge of this century will be water. Water management, water scarcity, the oceans. The United Nations just told us that we're in danger to have more plastics than fishes in the oceans. And the first victims of this situation are everywhere women and girls. So that will be part of our approach. Everybody in this room who has some expertise about what can we do to address the issue of water and water scarcity, water management, sanitation, well, Canada wants to be a partner with you. So these are the reasons why I was so pleased, Madam Chair, to hear what the members of your panel did. I will not insist on the reasons why Canada selected women and girls as a priority, because your panel did it so well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Dion. Thank you. Did I see a hand going up? Commissioner, thank you so much. We understand that you've got other pressing commitments since you are our host. Thank you. Did I see a hand go up somewhere? No questions. I have a few here. So, I have a very interesting question for men. You have asked, are men willing to share power? Yannick.
I'm afraid I'm representing half of humankind on this panel. For me, women empowerment and gender equality is not a win-lose, zero-sum game. It's a win-win solution. At the end of the day, I don't think that any man living in a country that has made progress in terms of gender equality and women empowerment would like to go back. because we are speaking, we have put a lot of emphasis on the fact that women engagement in the economy can dramatically increase the size of the economy. $28 trillion was mentioned, but women empowerment can also dramatically increase the relation of respect in a given society. And everybody benefit from it. When you speak about women empowerment, at the end of the day, every single boy basically benefit from it because they do survive beyond 5 years old. And so for me, it's we are in a situation where we are not speaking about sharing more equally a given fixed size of a pie. We are speaking about dramatically expanding the pie, both economically and socially. We're speaking about societies that will end up being richer, healthier, happier.
We're going to take another question, but before we get there, I want to ask you to join us in a quiz. So get to your app. The question is, if farmers had exactly the same access to resources as men do, the number of hungry in this world could be reduced by how much? You have to choose between up to 100 million, up to 150 million, or up to 200 million. That's your guess. And while you guess, I have another question, and I want to put the question to Valerie. Someone sent me a question saying, if women are good for business and societies, shouldn't we be tougher on quotas to see greater representation of women in top economic positions?
Wow.
In top economic positions.
Yeah.
Quotas.
What's a top economic position?
Well, just like you're representing the men over there, I guess, even though I have a very strong panel, interesting that that question was put to me. I think my personal view is that, yes, we have 51% women in the world. We see that just by osmosis, it's not happening that women will share that same percentage in top economic positions, political positions. We have a few great examples, Canada being one of them on the political side. So my sense and my understanding is that we have to set those targets and quotas in order to break the barriers that are preventing us from getting the kind of representation that is urgently needed in this world to make the steps economically, socially that are required.
Very clear answer. Can we get to your responses on reduction of hunger in the world by empowering women? Can someone operate the screen to see what the audience replied? So is it up to 100, up to 150, or up to 200 million?
We should be number 3.
And the answer is?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Well, actually it's up to 150 million. But you didn't get it right. But that doesn't mean that this result would be negligible. Just imagine we could reduce the number of people hungry in this world by 150 million people if women farmers were empowered as men farmers are today. Sobering. Claudine, let me get back to you. Where do you see the greatest need for investment?
Thank you for the question. Before I get directly into that, I would like to tell you about a lady I met recently in Benin, southern Benin on the field. I will call her Agossi. Agossi is part of Voluntary Saving and Loan Association. She started, when she joined the group, saving about €1 per month, like 100 francs CFA per week. And then through her participation in the Saving and Loan Association, she managed to get a loan from the organization and invest in the production of palm oil. And then they formed into their association a group to export the palm oil to Nigeria because her community is at the neighbor, as like border with Nigeria. But since their production was not that big, they joined other voluntary saving and loan associations to increase the volume, and CARE connected them to a microfinance institution. They could keep their production until the prices increased, and then they sold it. By doing that, and by working with others, the number of women involved in palm oil business doubled in their area. And they could increase by 35% their income for their activity. Why am I sharing this with you? Is to give us a real sense of the difference that helping women at very low level, putting them together, ensuring that they have capacities because we train them in managing their activities, that they connect to each other. We connect them to the market. We help them access to the prices information from the market. They could succeed doing that. We said in the quiz that if women have access to resources as men, we will reduce significantly the hunger in the world. When we talk about these resources, what do we mean? We mean access to credit, access to information, and also access to land. These are challenges that women face in our countries. In regard to that, CARE decided for the next 5 years to reach 15 million women in West Africa through our voluntary saving and loan activities to ensure that they together consist a force to challenge the social norms and barriers, to ensure that they negotiate with the private sector to solicit capacity building, to help them improve the quality and the standard of their products, to have access to greater markets. We decided also not only to focus on like number of women accessing resources or getting into business, but also addressing issues of control over these resources. Because when we talk about economic empowerment for women, it's not only about counting women who have access to economic opportunities, but to ensure that once they get this access, they can control the resources. We used to say, and I heard it also today, that women invest 80% of their income to help their family, while men invest 40%. We need, while we appreciate that, to challenge such a situation. What does it mean? Do they have the choice to do that? And then we have to also question the decision that they have over the resources, the control they have over such resources. And we want to add that to the sense of the notion of the decent work by ILO, to question this control they have and the decision they can make. So we want to reinforce women. Now, coming back directly to your question about what we can do, I go back to Agosi. I told you about her earlier. When I met with her, she told me, I feel like I have moved from sunset to dawn, like du crépuscule à l'aube. Because she said, I felt my life was ending. Because I got married and then I didn't see any opportunity for me out there. Now I know, together with my friends and women in my community, I can make the difference. But at the same time, she told me, now that I'm at the dawn, à l'aube, at the dawn, how do you dawn? I will need to go a step further. I will need policies to be changed. I will need to have the capacity to go and speak with our policymakers locally and also at the parliament to look at policies and frameworks that prevent me as rural woman to access to land, to capacity, etc., to produce and increase my activities. I need to have access to private sectors actors directly and to explain to them what I need, what capacities I need, what type of investment I need from them. She also told me I need to meet with microfinance institutions that you have connected us with to tell them about my profile. I have no ID, I have no line to put as a guarantee to have access to greater credit, to tell them what I need, what type of credit I need. So these are elements that Agosi told me about. These are things that we need to address, specific aspects that we need to look at to ensure that Agosi and hundreds of thousands of Agosi that are in Benin, in Togo, in West Africa, in Sub-Saharan Africa, to ensure that they are really empowered.
Thank you. Very clear. Let me go to Chawa. The gender gap is not closing. Actually, it's not narrowing. In actual fact, it is widening. It will take us longer today to get to gender parity than it did 1 year ago. So as the custodian of the future that you are, where do you think, how do you think we could shape better solutions for the future?
When we talk about solutions, let me give a background. Especially solutions to the economic empowerment of women. Now, in my line of work, where I represent the women who are selling sweets and mobile airtime along the streets of sunny Botswana, who make an equivalent of €2 a day, women who have an environment that is not financially inclusive. We look at that as a problem that really can't be excluded when we talk about solutions and the economic empowerment of women. You can never separate financial inclusion of women from their economic empowerment. So, in my capacity as a project leader of Putting Women First Trust, my organization, where we empower women in the SMEs, we give them financial literacy in partnership with private institutions such as banks, and we give them business management skills on a monthly basis. We have discovered that financial inclusion is one area that needs to be targeted if we are going to empower women economically. These women are women who run businesses, yet have children to put food on the table for, yet do not have access to banking services such as having bank accounts. They do not have microfinancing opportunities because they don't have the collateral or don't meet requirements of banking institutions. Now, as a young person and as a young leader, we are aware of the gap. We have discovered from the IMF that there's 6% gender gap in terms of financial inclusion. And there are 3 stages of solutions that I would state is let's have innovation, policy reform, and political empowerment of women. Now, political empowerment of women is something I cannot separate from economic empowerment. There is a strong link that often goes unnoticed when it comes to political participation of women and the economic. When you have a woman who is in a political position, in a decision-making position, I guarantee you, no woman can ignore the betterment of another woman economically. So that is why I think the question that was posed to you was amazing and you answered it very well, that we need a 50-50 gender quota for women in parliament. Coming from Botswana, we recently signed the SADC Gender Protocol, and one of my favorite articles in the protocol states that we should have 50-50% gender quota in the parliament. And as an activist, it's something that I will fight for my country to have, and because it's one of the solutions to say, if we have women making decisions and policies about economy that affect us as women, then we are empowering ourselves economically. And one of the solutions I would say is innovation. Young people are known very well for innovative ways of solving issues. Innovation in terms of financial inclusion, I would say let's find new ways of doing finance with women in SMEs. Women in SMEs are women doing small scaling in villages and countries. In my country, they are usually in the far or out of urban areas. Now, when we say financial inclusion, how can we find a solution to that? Let's have branchless banking. Let's have banking that is done and the woman doesn't have to leave her business station to have a business account, because those are one of the barriers that are usually gone unnoticed, that women just don't have the facilities to go from a village to an urban area to open an account. So let's have branchless banking. Let's have mobile transfer cash payments. Everyone these days has a mobile phone. So this is an opportunity actually to engage the private sector, for example, mobile companies, to say, let's empower women. Let every woman in business and SMEs to have a mobile phone so that they can have financial access, so they can make cash payments through mobiles. And when I talk about policy reform, it's about making policies that are gender mainstreamed. Let's have initiatives that are gender mainstreams. Let's look at our land acts, our constitution, our banking acts, and see if they have provision for the empowerment of women economically. Let's investigate the laws that we have in our countries and the policies, and think, how can we change that? How can we include women economically? So the three solutions I'll definitely give is innovation. Let's have new ways of including women. Let's have new ways of saying, how can we include women in the finance? Let's have women in political power. I volunteer for an organization called Letsema, Women in Politics, where we are currently advocating, like I said, to have a 50-50 gender quota in our parliament and to have more women in leadership positions. And finally, let's have policy reforms. It's not enough sometimes to have policies and gather and write them. Let's actually implement them, and let's have accountability. I can't separate policy reform or policy making from accountability. These two go together. We have a policy, let's implement, let's account for it. What have we done? How have we achieved all of it? Why? Why not?
So politics, policies, and innovation, again, very clear. Valerie, let me just get back to you. The World Food Programme has a program called Purchase for Progress. How is it empowering women?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And we heard earlier from Claudine and in the quiz that women play a critical role in agriculture, and we know that across the world. But that role is often, usually, unpaid, and it's nearly always undervalued. And we know that by investing in women more fully in agriculture, and by this I mean strengthening their capacities, creating opportunities, removing discriminatory practices, that these kind of investments have the potential to drive economic development. They have the potential to drive improved food security, and we heard lift 150 million people out of hunger. They have the opportunity to improve household welfare. And if women had access to the same productive resources as men currently do, we would increase yields by 20 to 30%, which would mean that we would increase food production by around 4%, and we'd reduce malnutrition by 12 to 17%. So absolutely critical for achieving zero hunger, and all it takes is ensuring that women have access to the same productive resources that men have. Obviously, we'd like to lift those even higher for both women and for men. So with WFP, our engagement and our ability to invest in these kind of areas has sort of mirrored our trajectory as an organization. Initially, when we were created more than 50 years ago, we were primarily an organization that moved the surpluses of the world from the richer countries to the poorer countries. And in that regard, we sought to find ways in the countries where we distributed this in-kind food to ensure that the food was put in the control of women and that women had a key role to play in decisions made about the way that food was used to support programs and build sustainability. But over time, things shifted, and we started to increasingly have the opportunity to receive cash resources and use those resources to invest in the countries where we were working, to the point that now WFP spends more than $1 billion every year buying food in the developing world. And so it's about still, in many cases, about moving surpluses from one part of a country to another or from one country to another. But that movement investment is happening within the countries and within the regions that have the deficits. And this created a real opportunity. How can we leverage that purchasing footprint in order to have a life-changing impact on smallholder farmers? So small farmers who are producing a lot of the food, but when we buy it, and we're looking, because we're trying to be the best steward possible for the resources that we have, we tend to buy at the cheapest price we can get for the highest quality food. That tends to be food that's been aggregated from large producers or from traders who collect it from a lot of different producers. So we wanted to see the benefit of those purchases go to the smallholders, and fundamentally to see the benefits of those purchases increasingly benefit women and increase their income. So that provided a great opportunity for us to be investing in addressing some of the barriers that Claudine highlighted were preventing women from producing surpluses and from marketing their surpluses to us initially, but then fundamentally to address those in a way that better connected smallholder farmers to markets, better connected women to markets. So this was the Purchase for Progress program that we launched. So that provided a great opportunity to invest in and empower women. But then we take it a step further, because we find that now we have donors who are increasingly giving cash support and looking for that cash to be used to actually transfer cash to vulnerable people who can then purchase food in the markets where they live. And so in that regard, WFP is now the largest provider of cash as a humanitarian assistance tool. And that gives us another opportunity, because it becomes, so who gets the cash? What is provision of cash as a safety net, as an emergency response, as a social protection tool do to the dynamics within a household? And can we provide that cash to women as a way of ensuring the money is used for food purchases and that it contributes to the well-being of the household? So that gave us another opportunity that we have been examining and using and pushing forward in order to ensure that the use of the cash really contributed to the well-being of the household. And then last but not least, we found that that work brought us into the retail sector in some of the areas where we're working. So I'll take the example of Kenya, where I live, and Kakuma refugee camp, where we have been, as a partner with UNHCR, we have been feeding refugees, initially from food brought in abroad, increasingly by food bought through the region, and now by cash transfers to refugees. We have been feeding this population for 25 years or so, and the population has grown and shrunk at a various point, but we're talking about 260,000 people now who have been benefiting for this food assistance. In that context, we saw ourselves initially as an assistance provider, but from the eyes of the population in the Kakuma area, WFP was actually the biggest trader in town, and that has a huge impact. So the entire market was really built around this assistance that we were providing, and as we shifted the way in which we were providing it, that also impacted on the market significantly. So we wanted to leverage that as well and see what, this is an area that's at the very end of the supply chain. Nobody's growing food in Kakuma in anything but the smallest sort of household garden level. They're getting their food from Eldoret, they're getting their food from Nairobi. That food is coming 500 or more kilometers before it gets there. And at each stage in the supply chain, there are all sorts of impediments and challenges that are leading to that cost of food going up and up and up. So we wanted to be able to provide cash to people and fundamentally cash to women, and have that cash translate into better value for their purchases. And so that involved getting involved really in the retail sector to understand all of those price points so that we could bring the cost of the food down as much as possible so that the traders, the sellers, the vendors could still make a profit but would charge less to the beneficiary, so they would get more value for their shilling, basically. And we found in that regard that women had a very special and low role in the retail sector in Kakuma. So if you looked at who has the shops with the big bags of grain in the back, making the big money, and all of the different processed food products, the milk powder and this and that, that was fundamentally men. But what were the women selling? The women were selling small vegetables. They were mostly selling on the floor. So we had women on the floor selling vegetables.
Valerie, I think we are going to have to cut you a bit short here, and not that what you're saying is not important, but so that we give everybody a bit of a participation. I want, in particular, to open the floor to the audience because we want to hear from them how businesses can unlock the potential of women to participate in the marketplace or in the workplace. And we want this in one word. So can you please go to your apps and tell us in one word how businesses can do that? Let me, because we are just coming to the end of the session and we still have one issue we haven't really dealt with, which is culture, norms, traditions. And I want to go to Yannick and Parvinder briefly on that. Yannick, UN Women runs the He for She campaign, which is precisely about changing cultures, norms, traditions. What is it achieving?
Maybe I would like to react to some of the points that have been made by the panels, because both Valérie and Claudine have put a lot of emphasis on what addressing the gender gap in agriculture could mean. And you asked me at the beginning, what does it mean, women economic empowerment, when it comes to implementing the SDGs? And actually, it's an excellent example, because if through addressing the gender gap in agriculture, we increase the productivity of women farmers in sub-Saharan Africa by 20 to 30%, as mentioned by Valérie, it will have an impact in terms of SDG 1, poverty, SDG 2, food security, SDG 3 and SDG 4, because indeed it is true that women invest 40% more than men in the health and education of their family. Are they obliged or not is another question, but it will have a dramatic impact in terms of SDG 4, SDG 5, 3, SDG 4, SDG 5, of course, but also, for example, SDG 13. When you need to address the gender gap in agriculture, based on what Claudine and Valérie have said, is exactly what you need to accelerate the adoption of climate-smart agriculture. Secure land tenure, access to new market, access to new information, access to new finance. And also, we can keep going on for all the SDGs. SDG 16, a woman farmer who can feed, educate, and clothe her kids will be able to make sure that they do not join Boko Haram or ISIS. So there, Valérie and Claudine have given us a wonderful example about what does it mean, women economic empowerment, to achieve the SDGs in a catalytic, integrated, indivisible manner. So I simply wanted to react a little bit to this discussion. Now, maybe to link to what Shawa was saying. UN Women is the only UN agency to have been established during the 21st century. And our establishment was a recognition that progress in terms of gender equality and women empowerment were not going fast enough. As you have mentioned, according to the WEF, actually in 2015, it will have taken only 95 years to achieve gender equality. Today, it's 170 years, according to the same WEF. So I don't know what we did from 2015 to 2016, but it's an issue. It's a major issue. So the mission of UN Women is to accelerate efforts toward gender equality and women empowerment by breaking trends. And we focus on 4 main thematics: women political empowerment, women economic empowerment, elimination of violence against women, and women engagement in peace, security, and humanitarian action. Why do we don't only focus on women economic empowerment? As mentioned by Shawa, the lack of economic empowerment is often a cause and a consequence of lack of political empowerment. And it's also a cause and a consequence of violence against women and vulnerability to crisis. You can invest as much money as you want in terms of promoting women entrepreneurs. If they cannot get out of their house without being exposed to violence, very little will happen. And so we have to look at all of it in an integrated manner. What does it mean in terms of he or she, to wrap up on your question? Because I didn't want to only have he or she as a question. We will not accelerate efforts toward gender equality and women empowerment if we do not send a very clear signal to women and to men and boys that it is in their best interest. It is a win-win option, and that we will benefit, everybody will benefit from it. Because what we have seen is that when we only focus on women economic empowerment, we often have a spike in terms of violence against women. And so it's very important to engage men and boys and to tell them, do it because it's a fundamental right. If you believe in human rights, you believe in women's rights. And do it because ultimately you will benefit from it, your kids will benefit from it.
I want to give Parvinder the final word, and I want to ask you, Parvinder, of course you're free to answer what you want, but my question would be, we know that diversity is good for business. And diversity not just in the workforce, but also at the top of the company. So how do you see women bringing changes in this corporate culture?
So that is a subject that I campaigned in the UK for a long, long time. I work in the media and entertainment industry, white middle-class male industry. I was an anomaly in that industry. It was clear to me, my reason for working in the industry was to bring stories, my stories, and see myself reflected on the screen. The only way to do that was to challenge that industry and fight my way into that industry and get the resources and tell those stories. But that wasn't enough because clearly, as you went up the hierarchy, I used to call it got Snow White, and it got male, and it got Snow White. So in 2000, we launched a campaign to basically change the face of British television and the film industry, and we did achieve that. Similarly, I was part of the founder of Women in Film and Television, and our goal was 50-50 representation. We absolutely achieved that. What that change made in that industry was the content and the culture of that industry was fundamentally changed. Women brought different perspectives, new perspectives to the way to tell those stories, as well as instead of being on an all-male film shoot, you now had diverse faces, and that continues to be the case. But since coming here, I mean, really, I listen to all of you. Your script has to change. You all, you always say, and we must get the private sector engaged. Well, actually say it with as if you really mean it, yeah? And you don't. When I hear that, it doesn't come from the heart. Like, what would imagine if the private sector, with a different mindset, with a different way of coming at the challenges that you have all outlined, what would they come with? They would come with a very different perspective in how to address this. Tony Elumelu, through the Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program, is just one perspective. I invite all of you, please don't go and start initiating more incubator programs, more training programs. Take the Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program, made in Africa, by an African, for Africans, adapt it, white label it. We don't care. We can only invest in 1,000 a year. We believe this year, we only selected 1,000 out of 38,000. Imagine what's happening with those 37,000. Those are women entrepreneurs. Those are entrepreneurs, African startups, who are bringing solutions to African challenges. You need them, and they can provide, and we have that database. The other thing, so certainly you need to change the script. You also need to change the language and the tone of that language, right? We are not, as Tony Elumelu said, we are not giving for the sake of giving. Women don't want to be given, a hand up. What they want is investment. approach women, whatever it is, you're putting them on boards, you're investing in those women to be able to have a voice on those boards, right? So they can really bring that voice and change that conversation at the board level. So change the language, change the mindset with which you are approaching this problem. I think you have to set the bar higher for women. You know, whenever people talk about microfinance, what I hear is Africa. What I hear is possibly India. Well, actually, there are women who are under equally difficult, circumstances in the so-called developed countries. Women, once they are actually invested in terms of training, capacity building, mentoring, and funding, are able to achieve the most amazing things. And I really ask you to do that. Certainly in Africa, please, let's keep the value chain, the agri-value chain, the manufacturing value chain, the fashion value chain. Let's keep it in Africa. There's no reason why in Uganda, with 40 million cows, they're importing second-hand shoes. There's no reason why in Uganda, with the largest cotton industry, they're importing second-hand clothes, right? There is no reason why they're bringing second-hand Japanese car. The talent is there. 70% of the African population is young. Look at this one here. She can run Botswana. She can probably run a lot of African countries, right? Africa is, the African dividend is its demographic, is its talent. Invest. See women as talent and not as a problem. I invite you finally to come to Lagos and meet the 1,000 entrepreneurs that are going through the program this year. On the 13th and 14th of October, come and experience what young African entrepreneurs, men and women, are doing in innovation to bring about solution to many of the challenges that they experience. I invite you. We recognize $5,000 invested in each of those entrepreneurs, $5 million a year, 10 million over the last 2 years is not enough. So we're setting up an Africa SME fund. We're taking the other $5 million and setting up a fund because many of those women entrepreneurs as well as male entrepreneurs need more funding, more than $5,000. So we are anchoring that fund with $5 million. I invite you to join the Tony Elumelu Foundation in building a fund that will directly, the fund will be available to African startups, men and women, so that they can scale their project. Because all of those entrepreneurs want to scale their projects. Finally, data. We have the most extraordinary data. You all, what I find amazing is you have the data, you have the analysis, you've got the insights, and you know what needs to be done. And yet I hear the same narrative. Well, let's change that narrative. Once you've got the insights, you know what you have to do, which is what Archana asked, which is the how. And we are, I've got tired of people asking me, so how many women on your program? As if it was like, we haven't thought about it. Well, I can say it's 39%. And how we achieve that. So one of the things that we're doing is to looking at the 150,000 women who came to our application portal, the women from those 150,000. We're going directly to those women entrepreneurs and asking them what are their challenges and what are their solutions, and based on which we will produce a policy report, which was an action report, which will we take to the 54 policy leaders from government to ministers, to organizations who can really build an enabling environment where women entrepreneurs can thrive and make a phenomenal economic contribution to the development and the transformation of Africa.
Thank you, Parvinder. I'm going to throw the ball back at you. I'm going to tell you that maybe this Africa SME Fund has to be blended together with the EU Investment Fund and maybe with the investment vehicle that we just heard Canada is shaping up. So I'm going to throw this back at you. Don't reinvent. Let's just capitalize the investment vehicles that exist. We have heard from you. We hear markets, banking, inclusion, mentoring, finance, connecting voices, business. We've not done justice to this discussion, and I want to thank my fellow panelists, and I want to apologize to them because they certainly had much more to offer than this 1.5 hours could give us. But I want to encourage you to continue the conversation after the panel. Again, profit from this unique opportunity of having these exceptional people within the panel. I also want to convene you on the 20th of June ITC, together with the European Commission, Directorate General for Trade, with the Commissioner Cecilia Malmström, will be hosting a one-day event on women and trade, focused on devising, shaping up a lot of the messages we've heard this morning and transforming them into policies and practices on the ground. Thank you very much again. I think this panel deserves a big applause. Thank you for being with us.